Finally, the day had come to start my long dreamed of camping under the wing adventure. It was 10 o'clock when I took off from Cranland and pointed the nose of Whiskey Blue north towards Maine. I had hardly reached cruise altitude when something within me must have hit the pause button. For a couple of seconds I had this unreal sensation of total calm and detachment, as if my alter ego had stopped the clock and asked, "Is this real? Are you really flying your own Cessna 170 on the first leg of a trip that you had dreamed about as a boy? No, 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 no. You're going to be waking up any second now." Hey, I'm Wolf. I'm a retired physicist and a glide and tailwheel pilot. It was Boston Approach who brought me back to the real reality with a traffic advisory. I was on my way to Gadabout Gaddis, where a rafting outfit maintained a really nice 2,000-foot grass strip along the banks of the Kennebec River, and it was a perfect choice for my first destination. The owner of the airfield was a pilot, there were cabins on a restaurant on the premises, and a supermarket right across the road. If I needed any support in all things flying or camping, I would find it on site. So I stayed a couple of nights. And then my itinerary was completely flexible. Yes, I had 2 invitations from friends in Ohio and Tennessee, but I'd rather let easy VMC conditions drive where I was going to go next. And from Maine, the next 2 stops were Parlin Field in New Hampshire and Skaneateles in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. Everything went really well. Engine runs smoothly, all temps in the green, and I had already met a couple of wonderful people. So on to my next stop, Waynesville, Ohio, where I wanted to visit an old soaring buddy of mine. I made a fuel stop in Portage County, and after I took off, suddenly the engine lost 200 RPM and ran rough. Now what? I lowered the nose and made a shallow turn to crosswind and ran through the checklist. And once I was done, the engine had recovered 50 RPM. And after another minute or so, everything seemed to be back to normal. What was that? What should I do now? Well, I decided to climb in the vicinity of the airfield as high as VFR rules and cloud pace would permit and have a close eye on the engine monitor. And when I got up to 6,500 feet without any additional hiccups, I decided to head out, only modifying my routing so that I would always stay within easy reach of an airfield. When I got to Rod Stewart Airfield in Waynesville, the first thing I did was talk to Cubby Stewart, the owner of the airfield and famous Piper Cub restorer and fixer, about those symptoms on the O300. Hard to tell, he said, but you know what? Let's do a compression test first thing in the morning. Great idea. So when I came back the next day, he told me, everything is fine, compression is good, engine runs perfectly. Well, that was great news, but it still left me with some sort of an uneasiness, because what was it and why did it happen? Now, since the forecast called for the passage of a cold front, which would probably render the next couple of days unflyable, I decided to escape to Michigan and wait the weather out there before returning on my southwesterly heading, which eventually brought me to Glasgow, Kentucky, where I once again experienced the marvelous camaraderie of general aviation pilots. I met a couple of pilots in the FBO, and all of them were chatting about their last flights and commenting about this unusually nice Cessna 170B which had just landed. And one of those guys even invited me to camp out on his private airstrip. So I flew over, made a couple of trial approaches, and figured this was out of my comfort zone. The narrow airstrip tucked between 2 low-lying hills, it just didn't feel right. So I flew back to Glasgow, and the guys were still there, and one of them offered to take me to a hotel, pick me up the next morning. Amazing. And he even suggested the next destination. You should fly to Puckett Field, he said. That's the oldest glider port in the state of Tennessee. And that's what I did the next day. Found another beautiful grass strip, met wonderful pilots, and went out with them for a really enjoyable dinner at a Mexican restaurant nearby. What a place. Puckett Field also was the westernmost part of my trip. So from now on, it was heading back east. My next stop was the Newcastle International Glider Port. And I got there when they just held their late season soaring contest, and I participated in the famous Labor Day barbecue. What an idyllic spot. From then on, 2 more legs and I was back at home base in Grandland, Massachusetts. What a trip it has been. Spectacular. All the places I've landed, the people I've met, and the beautiful scenery I've seen. But there was something nagging at me. In my dream, my barnstorming trip would take me all the way out west, and it would take 2 months. So shouldn't I really fulfill my dream the way it was meant to be? Fortunately, there was still a little bit of money left in the piggy bank, and that was tickling me. So I thought, well, maybe I could plan one last trip, and that's what I did. But first, I had to make sure that the engine, the 0300, was in perfect health. So, if you want to find out how my adventures with Whiskey Blue continued, come back and watch my next videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.